I almost stopped. Not early on, when it would have been easy to chalk it up to a failed experiment. Recently, after 20 plus episodes, after interviews and frameworks, solo teachings, and everything in between, I sat down and seriously considered whether any of this was worth continuing. No one pushed back, no one told me to quit. There was no dramatic moment. It was quieter than that, and honestly, that made it harder. Because the hardest person I've ever had to lead isn't a difficult employee, or a resistant team, or a demanding client. It's me. And if you've ever tried to lead yourself, really lead yourself with no one watching, no one holding you accountable, and an easier path sitting right in front of you, then this episode is for you. Welcome back to Lead with More, the podcast for leaders who want to grow with clarity, character, and purpose. I'm Tom Tabell, and today we're doing something a little different. This is episode 25, and instead of bringing you a guest or a framework, I want to bring you something more honest. What these 25 episodes have actually taught me about leadership. Because the most important lesson didn't come from a book or an interview or a course, it came from nearly quitting. Now here's something nobody tells you when you decide to lead yourself. External accountability can be a type of crutch, and most of us don't realize how much we're leaning on it until it's gone. When you work inside an organization, accountability is built into the structure. There are deadlines, there are meetings, there are people who notice when you show up and people who notice when you don't. That structure isn't weakness, it's infrastructure. It's there for a reason, and it works. But when you work for yourself, when you're the one setting the vision and the schedule, the expectation, something shifts. Suddenly, the only person enforcing anything is you. And that's when you find out very quickly what your self-leadership is actually made of. For me, that test came in the form of a microphone and a camera, and a Tuesday afternoon when I had every reason to just not record. No one was waiting, no one would have known, and that's exactly the problem. Because character isn't what you do when people are watching. Character is what you do when they're not. That's the first thing 25 episodes taught me. Not just head knowledge, but in real life. Here it is. Self-leadership is the foundation. Everything else is built on top of it. Now, I want to be honest with you about what happened because I think it's the most useful thing I can share today. After more than just 20 episodes, I hit a wall. That response wasn't what I'd hoped. The numbers weren't what I'd imagined. And I know 20 episodes isn't that many, but I started doing the math in my head. The time, the energy, the discipline it takes to keep cranking out episodes. And I weighed it against the best potential outcomes if I was wildly successful. And I thought, is it really worth it? It would be so much easier to stop. Not forever, maybe, but just stop, take a break, and reassess all the language we use when we're really just looking for a reason to quit. And I sat with that for a while because I had to be honest with myself about what was actually happening. Was I making a strategic decision, or was I just tired of leading myself through the weekly slog? That distinction matters a lot, because one of those answers is wisdom and the other is self-leadership breaking down. What pulled me through wasn't motivation. Like Elvis, motivation had already left the building. What pulled me through was something slower and quieter, something that showed up in my quiet daily devotionals, a commitment to what I felt like I was supposed to do, beyond any financial or other business measure. That's the difference between intention and true character. Now here's something else 25 episodes taught me. Practice is not glamorous, and growth is not comfortable. And those two facts are directly related. I've learned to work with a teleprompter. I've fumbled through several interviews. I've recorded episodes and listened back and thought, who is this person and what in the world is he even talking about? I've had to practice public speaking, not in front of a crowd, but in front of a camera in a room by myself with no applause, no feedback, no one to tell me I was getting better or worse. And that is exactly how it should work. Because here's what I've learned about practice. Perfect is not the goal. Progress is. And progress only happens when you're willing to be bad at something long enough to get good at it, and then willing to keep going after that. Now, recording yourself is one of the most uncomfortable, yet most effective leadership development tools I have ever used. You see every filler word. You hear every weak transition. You notice where your confidence drops and where your energy goes flat. It's a mirror that does not lie, but you have to be willing to look. The reps nobody sees are the ones that build the leader everyone eventually notices. That's true for podcasting. That's true for public speaking. And that's true for every skill that matters in leadership. The discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is happening. Growth is uncomfortable. One of the strangest things about doing this show is how much I've learned about authenticity. Not by studying it, but by being forced to practice it. There are a lot of voices in the leadership space, brilliant ones, people with large platforms, polished delivery, and frameworks that have helped thousands of leaders. And it's genuinely tempting when you're sitting alone in a room wondering if any of this is working, to look at what someone else is doing and think, maybe I should just do that. But here's what I've learned. You can borrow someone's ideas, and you can learn from their methods. You can even be shaped by their thinking, but you cannot copy their voice and expect it to resonate, because the voice only works when it's yours. Authenticity isn't a content strategy, it's a character commitment, and it gets tested most when no one is holding you to it, when the easier thing would be to imitate or to perform, or to produce something that sounds like leadership instead of something that actually is. Be yourself, not because it's the inspirational thing to say, but because it's the only thing that actually works over time. Everything else is borrowed, and borrowed things always run out. Now, I started this show to teach leadership. What I didn't expect was how much I would learn. Every guest I've sat across from, every thought leader, business leader, and expert I've met through my business dealings has added something to the way I think about leadership that I could not have gotten from a book alone. Because there's a difference between reading someone's ideas and hearing them think out loud and respond to questions and reveal where their frameworks actually came from. Conversations accelerate growth in ways that consumption alone never can. And the discipline of producing, of consistently creating content and showing up week after week has taught me more about self-leadership than almost anything else I've done, because you cannot fake consistency. You either did the work or you didn't. You either led yourself to the microphone or you didn't. 25 times I did. I'm telling you, the network, the perspectives, the relationships that have come out of this process, none of that would have existed if I'd stopped. Growth requires you to stay in the room long enough for the room to change you. Most people leave too early. So let me close this episode with this idea, and I'm speaking directly to whoever needs to hear it. You have something you've been putting off, a project, a conversation, a habit, a platform, something you've been meaning to start or meaning to return to, and every week that passes, the starting gets a little harder, and the reason to wait gets a little more convincing. I know that feeling. I've lived it. But here's what I know now that I didn't know then. The response you're waiting for, the validation, the numbers, the sign that it's working almost never comes before the commitment. It comes after, sometimes long after. And if you're only willing to lead yourself when the results are visible, you're not really leading yourself at all. Start before you're ready. Publish before it's perfect. Show up before you feel like it, because leadership, and I mean real leadership, is not about performing when the stakes are high and everyone's watching. It's about choosing to grow when the stakes feel low and nobody's paying attention. That is where character is built. And that's what leading with more actually means. I want to thank you for being here today on this episode. Whether you've been with me from the beginning or this is the first time you've listened, I'm glad you're here, and I don't take that lightly. If this episode resonated with you, share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It genuinely helps more people find the show. And if you're working through your own moment of almost quitting something, reach out. I'd love to hear where you are. And until next time, keep leading with more.